This is the final footage of a diver who never made it back. On screen, he's desperately trying to control his buoyancy, but his body keeps sinking, faster and faster. You can hear the panic in his breathing. You can see it in the way he moves, and within minutes, he disappears into the dark. This happened at the Dahab Blue Hole, a place known as both a diver's paradise and a graveyard. Today, we're diving into the story behind that footage. Hidden along Egypt's Red Sea coast, in the southeastern Sinai Peninsula, lies Dahab, a once sleepy fishing village that became a global legend overnight. Its claim to fame? A terrifying underwater sinkhole 7 kilometers north of town, known as the Dahab Blue Hole. From the surface, it's a dark, menacing circle of water, a portal to a world few survive. And its design is a death trap disguised as a wonder. Think of the Blue Hole as a broken barrel. Its top is the opening you see from above, but its side and bottom are punctured by a massive gap called the Arch, a gateway to the open ocean. Near the sea, the hole's edge dips to just 6 meters underwater. When paired with the arch far below, this edge forms a saddle-like shape, dubbed the Saddle by divers. It's a deceptive landmark, luring many into danger. Most divers play it safe. Snorkelers stick above 6 meters, recreational divers and casual freedivers stay between 5 and 40 meters. But below the saddle, a colossal channel stretches 52 meters down to the hole's floor. This place is wide, foreboding, like a doorway to the abyss. Topped with the arch, this is where only the most skilled technical divers and elite freedivers dare to venture. The arch itself stands 40 meters tall and 26 meters long. From inside the blue hole, sunlight streams through it, a blinding glow that has cost countless lives. Divers see that light, mistake it for the surface, and swim straight into the endless darkness beyond the arch. But the terror doesn't stop there. Below the arch, the seabed drops off abruptly, a sheer cliff that plummets from 100 meters to over 1,000 meters deep. With mild winter temperatures and warm summer waters, plus vibrant coral reefs, schools of exotic fish, sunken ships, and hidden caves, the Blue Hole quickly became a diver's mecca. But popularity came with a deadly cost. Between the 1980s and 2012, over 130 diving accidents were recorded in just 30 years, an average of 8 deaths per year. Unofficial estimates? Well over 200. It's no wonder locals call it the graveyard of divers. A short walk from the Blue Hole, a hillside is lined with hundreds of memorial plaques, tributes from the families of those who lost their lives here. Among them, one small, unremarkable plaque stands out. It honors Yuri Lipski, a 22-year-old Russian diving instructor, the man whose final moments we're about to relive. On April 28, 2000, Yuri arrived at the Blue Hole with a plan. Dive rapidly to the arch, roughly 60 meters down, maybe even deeper. But no one will ever know his final depth. Then ascend immediately. He planned to film every second with a camera mounted on his helmet. His gear was basic and dangerous. A 12-liter single cylinder of compressed air, a 12-kilogram lead belt to speed his descent, a helmet camera that would record everything, a basic BCD, buoyancy compensation device, and a simple dive computer. All of this gear had one thing in common. If something went wrong, there would be no second chance. An hour before he jumped in, Yuri asked Tarek Omar, a respected local diver, to be his dive buddy. Tarek refused outright. He called Yuri's plan suicidal, a reckless gamble with no room for error. Yuri was a diving instructor, but his experience was limited to recreational diving. His technical diving skills were virtually non-existent. He could operate his gear, but when crisis struck, his ability to think clearly and react would be untested. With just one cylinder of air, one small mistake would be fatal. Tarek begged Yuri to abort the dive, offering to train him for 2 weeks to prepare for the deep dive and video. But Yuri didn't have 2 weeks. He was only in Dahab for 48 hours. "I don't have time," he told Tarek. And with that, he made the choice that would cost him his life. He would dive alone. Yuri leaped into the water without a second thought, and he sank faster than he'd anticipated, likely weighed down by that heavy lead belt. Minutes later, he caught sight of the massive arch, glowing with an otherworldly blue light. Every diver who sees that light is drawn to it, and Yuri was no different. But by his own plan, he should have been heading up by then. He only had one cylinder, after all. Yet for some reason, overconfidence, curiosity, or the first signs of confusion, he drifted toward the arch and kept sinking. As he sank deeper, the water pressure squeezed the air in his BCD, robbing him of buoyancy. His descent turned into a free fall, completely out of control. If he didn't want to sink, why didn't he stop it? The answer lies in his footage. Slurred speech, jerky movements, a mind clouded by nitrogen narcosis, also called the martini effect. It's like being blackout drunk, destroying judgment and decision-making. To make things worse, the increasing pressure forced excess oxygen into his blood, triggering oxygen toxicity, a 1-2 punch that would seal his fate. Here's why it spiraled so quickly. Take an empty plastic bottle, cap it tight at the surface. It's firm, full of air. Drop it underwater, and the pressure crushes it flat. To blow it back up, you'd need far more air than it held on land. A diver's lungs work the same way. To keep them expanded underwater, you have to breathe in more air, meaning more nitrogen and oxygen dissolve in your blood, worsening narcosis and toxicity. Yuri stumbled through the water, intoxicated by nitrogen, his body failing him. He kept inflating his BCD, over and over, never realizing he was still too heavy. The solution was simple: drop the lead belt. But he couldn't think clearly. He watched, helpless, as he plummeted from 60 meters to 92 meters, the bottom of the blue hole. Panic took over. He tried inflating his BCD again, and then, a loud, fatal pop. His BCD bladder burst, releasing all its air. Any chance of ascending was gone. Even if he had managed to float up, survival was impossible. At 90 meters deep, air is used 10 times faster than at the surface. With one cylinder, he had just 1 or 2 minutes of air left. Even if he had air, it wouldn't be enough to decompress. Without decompression, the dissolved gases in his blood would erupt like shaken soda. He'd black out and die before reaching the surface. The footage ends with Yuri yanking the regulator out of his mouth. Then, the screen goes black. No one knows if he turned the camera off and dropped it, or if it slipped from his helmet. Yuri, now completely without buoyancy, tumbled uncontrollably toward the open ocean. He finally came to a stop at 115 meters, likely hitting a rock. Without footage, we'll never know how long he fought for his life there. But it was brief. He died terrified, alone, and in despair. An hour passed before Yuri's family, waiting anxiously on shore, realized something was terribly wrong. They begged Tarek Omar to search for him. Tarek knew it was too late. Yuri's air would have run out long before. The next day, April 29th, Tarek and his team descended to the bottom of the blue hole. They found Yuri's camera at 92 meters, below the arch. They kept searching, and at 115 meters, they found his body. He was lying face down, no signs of prolonged suffering. They brought Yuri and his gear to the surface. When Tarek inspected the equipment, he made a chilling discovery. Yuri's BCD was burst, his cylinder was empty, and the 12-kilogram lead belt was still around his waist. He never remembered to drop it. But the biggest shock was the camera. It was only rated to 75 meters, yet after sitting at 92 meters for an entire day, it still worked. That's how we have this footage. That's how we know Yuri's final moments. Egyptian authorities never released an official report on Yuri's death. But in interviews, Tarek Omar broke down the fatal mistakes that cost Yuri his life. First, no mixed gas, no helium-rich trim mix, just a single cylinder of compressed air. This made nitrogen narcosis all but inevitable at depth. Yuri's dive computer showed his oxygen levels were far above safe limits, and footage of his convulsions confirms he also suffered from oxygen toxicity. Second, using a single cylinder for a deep dive, no backup, no safety net. Third, poor weight management. The 12-kilogram lead belt, combined with the camera and batteries, made him far too heavy. But the deadliest mistake? Arrogance. Yuri lacked technical diving experience. He ignored buddy rules, brushed off warnings, and rushed into a dive he was nowhere near ready for. He was in a hurry to save time, and ended up losing it forever. Yuri's tragedy is just one of many at the Dahab Blue Hole. This paradise has claimed hundreds of lives, each with a story as haunting as Yuri's. If you want to hear more, if you want to uncover the other deaths that turned this beautiful spot into a graveyard, let me know in the comments. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.